They say we'll never forget this year. The isolation, the fear, the loss. They say that 2020 will leave a permanent mark. That historians will spend decades writing about these months. That our grandchildren will spend semesters studying these weeks. But while 2020 has broken every norm, it will not break us. And while 2020 has brought unprecedented adversity, adversity has never stopped us before. And even though we're now separated, our hearts are more united than ever before. They say we'll never forget this year, that 2020 will leave a permanent mark. We wouldn't have it any other way. Today's pressure will forge tomorrow's clarity. Today's dead end will spark tomorrow's innovation. Today's resistance will hone tomorrow's strength. And today's loss will deepen tomorrow's love. The most important pursuits have never been easy. And so, despite all odds, despite all adversity, we will uncompromisingly pursue pure products, pure business practices, pure love for humanity, pure intentions, together. We say 2020 is just the beginning.
I want to officially welcome all of you to our Pursue 2020 doTERRA Global Connection. This is our biggest gathering ever, with tens of thousands of you joining us from all around the world. We've been working very hard to prepare meaningful and valuable messages and training. I suppose it's not possible to duplicate the electric-like energy that happens when 30,000 of us are gathered together in person. And like you, we are looking forward to the return of those days. In the meantime, as we gather online, I do not think any of you will be disappointed in what you're going to experience in the next couple of days. Now, we are in the middle of unprecedented and challenging times, unequaled in nearly all of our memories. Sadly, we recognize that some of you have been directly impacted by this global virus. For all of those who have struggled, suffered loss, or are working to find a foothold today, please know that our thoughts and hopes are for many brighter moments ahead for you and for your families. You have our love and support. I'm sure there are many more of you who may be experiencing significant economic stress. Few, if any of us, has escaped the fear, anxiety, frustration, or even anger that seem to be causing so much upheaval and discord in our world today. One of our goals over the next couple of days is to help restore trust and hope, perhaps something we all could use a little more of. In 2008, doTERRA was in its infancy. The United States was entering the most severe recession it had ever experienced since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Confidence seemed to be at an all-time low. I imagine that many people likely looked at me and my partners with questioning, wondering eyes, wondering why we would even consider launching a business at that time. Truth is, at least in part, doTERRA was deeply affected by our early circumstances and is what it is today because of when and how we began. doTERRA was built on a foundation of sacrifice, scarcity of resources, and gratitude. For the first 13 months of our existence, none of the founders were paid. No one received any medical benefits. We had to be very conservative and very careful with our very limited resources. We didn't know if and when the recession would end. There was no crystal ball to tell us that everything would work out in time. We just knew that we felt inspired to build something that could change the world and that would bless many lives. We knew it would take a lot of effort, and we knew it would take time. We lived the principle of delayed gratification, hoping that our money would hold out, that rewards would come later, and that we could stay true to our mission and purpose and desires of our heart. Today, some of the challenges that we face feel very familiar, but today they are global in nature, extending far beyond the United States and impacting the entire world. When we look back and see the parallels between now and then, we appreciate that doTERRA was built for times like this. Our deep commitment to purity, quality, seems to matter even more than it ever did before. Now, few, if any, could have predicted the extremes of our current climate, including us. But you can have confidence in doTERRA. We've continued to govern the company along the same principles that were so important to us in our beginning. We are grateful that we haven't needed to lay off a single employee during this crisis of the past 6 months. As a company, we have been rewarded with a team that has dug in, embraced the new and ever-changing paradigm, and has done truly amazing things. While we never expected a global pandemic, we have always planned carefully, adding protections, building redundancy, preparing to weather any storm. We have a plan. In fact, we have a plan B and a plan C. And because of our beginnings, this has become part of our very nature. And today, we are free to pursue our mission, striving to pursue what's pure in everything that we do. Looking back, we're grateful for the difficult times and the galvanizing effects of sacrifice and the impact that our conservative approach to business has had on our ethos and our foundation. Today, doTERRA has become the gold standard in essential oils in the entire industry. And it's not just us saying so. We've taken our global botanical network and scientific and medical partnerships places that others simply cannot go or are not willing to follow. Purity and quality are the strengths of doTERRA. And as I said earlier, now it matters more than ever. We've had to really scramble the past 6 months, working hard to meet the increased demands for our products. Our amazing team has embraced these challenges, and as you will hear from some of them throughout the event, I'm sure that you'll agree that our capabilities are greater, our supply is healthier, and production is increasing. We are significantly stronger and better prepared to meet the future challenges. Some amazing achievements have happened this past year. Despite the challenges and constraints of a pandemic, we've managed to complete significant humanitarian projects around the world. One of these is the hospital in Somaliland, serving over 500,000 people in one of the most remote and difficult regions of the world. Even the World Health Organization was stunned recently upon learning of the completion of this project. You'll be hearing more about this, as well as numerous other significant humanitarian projects around the globe, all made possible because of you, your generosity, and your passion. Nothing of significance ever happens without passion. Of late, some of our priorities have shifted closer to home. We are excited and committed to taking action and doing our part with the support of our new Inclusion and Diversity Committee, helping all of those who feel marginalized or perhaps less visible. Together, we will learn, and we hope to soften hearts, to open minds, to facilitate healing. We're working to build a more united, stronger doTERRA family. Perhaps some of you have found some silver linings during this pandemic experience. Perhaps you've taken a little more time to become reacquainted with your family members and friends. Perhaps you've used this time to refill your cup and to recharge your batteries. Hindsight is always 20/20. For me, understanding the past helps me to appreciate and better understand the future. And the future is very bright. So what does the future look like? As I said, it helps to look back at the past. Almost exactly 6 years ago, Emily Wright and I were returning from the first trip to Somalia. We were gone for about 2 weeks on that trip. While we were gone, the entire company moved to this new, beautiful global campus. I remember going back to our old, now empty offices that weekend, where we had our humble beginnings. As I cleared out my office and boxed up my personal effects, I found myself completely alone in a completely empty building. As I walked around in the silence, observing the small 10-foot by 10-foot room where we had our very first product store, I found myself saying, what were we thinking? We were starting with nothing. It was a recession, so much fear and uncertainty. Yet we had hope, perhaps a fool's hope, but we locked arms with our friends who also had hope, who went on to become great leaders, influencing so many and doing so much good. Today feels like another beginning. I hope that you will look to the future with hope and join us in building your future, increasing your circle of influence, and making a difference in this amazing world. Remember, when you bring the power of the many together in your teams to form the power of one, that's when the miracles begin to happen. That's when we begin to discover that each of us possesses far more potential for influence and good than we have ever imagined. Now it's my honor to introduce Simone Lesu. Simone joined doTERRA in 2016 and has made a huge impact on the entire doTERRA family. His optimism and love of essential oils is contagious. Simone is part of everyone's family. Please join me in welcoming your host for this morning, Director of U.S. Sales, Simone Lesu.
doTERRA family and friends, welcome to Pursue 2020. Whether you're a seasoned vet and you've had a handful of conventions under your belt, maybe all of them, or this is your very first one, whatever the case is, we're absolutely thrilled to have you. Now, this being a global event, we know we have a lot of people tuning in from all over the world. We acknowledge that, but drop a comment below exactly where you're coming from. Here's the thing, wherever you are and whatever time zone you're in, we hope that you're excited for an amazing event. But before we move into the action-packed agenda today, I'd like to bring it back to why we do what we do. Our mission at doTERRA is to change lives. And this is a charge that we're constantly pursuing. Pursue, the theme of this entire event. The definition of pursue is a dedicated engagement of purpose. We pursue pure products, pure business practices, pure love of humanity, and pure intentions. Now, we'll dive into what that truly means throughout the next few days, but just know that this is a beautiful, beautiful movement that millions around the world are so proud to be part of. Now, my friends, from start to end, you'll learn what makes doTERRA different, how we produce the purest essential oils on the planet, and how together we're truly making a difference on a global scale. Today, we've got panels of experts on a variety of great topics. Our founding executives will go back to the very beginning of doTERRA. You'll take a journey through our labs to different parts of the world. Today, you'll learn why purity and potency truly matter.
What does it mean for a product to be pure? Is it the strongest? The most effective? Or does it also mean that it was the most resilient? In a world full of toxic imitations and adulterated imposters, it resisted. Never allowing efficiency to give way to embellishments. It never chose profit over potency. It chose to be exactly what the world desperately needs. Something real. Something to believe in. Something that lifts, inspires, connects, heals. A pure product is more than just a seal on a bottle or the highest industry certifications and endorsements. It is the thousands of decisions made along the way that insisted the ideal and protected the promise. A pure product is a mission, a belief that by adding nothing, it, in turn, offers everything.
Now, oftentimes we're asked, what makes our essential oils different? It's a common question. When you're serving your family, your loved ones, your communities, quality matters. We know our essential oils will do what we say they will do, and quality brings that confidence. This has been in the doTERRA DNA from day one.
Well, sometimes I look back and I just wonder, what were we thinking? What was I thinking?
We went for a long, long period of time with no resources. And when I mean no resources, I mean no resources.
People told us we were crazy to go all in. You know, is this really going to work? I think some of the most beautiful things can emerge through trial and through difficult times.
I had been a physician for a long period of time, and I'd had a patient who came to see me, and they would ask me, Dr. Hill, what do you think about the essential oils? And I made the mistake one time of saying, I think that's one of the craziest things I've ever heard. She looked me right in the eye and she said, I am so disappointed to hear that, because that's done more for me than you or any of your colleagues or anyone has ever done for me. And it intrigued me. And over time, I became more intrigued. I became involved with essential oils. And now for the last several decades, this is all that I have focused on and all that I have done.
I remember when I first came into the essential oil industry, I thought they were voodoo oils. I thought they were really, really strange. It wasn't long before I started using oils on my kids, and I was amazed at what I was able to do and how it empowered me as a mom to take charge of my family's health care.
So I was a huge skeptic. Parents were educators. My father's a professor of physics. So I just wasn't raised anything but allopathic Western medicine. I learned over the years how effective they were and can be, especially if they're pure.
After working 10 years in the essential oil industry, I found myself leaving for integrity purposes, because I knew that essential oils had to be pure. The desire of my heart was just to go home and raise my children. And I hadn't been home very long before my husband came to me and said, there's something more you're supposed to do. And as he said this to me, I actually was very angry with him, because my heart said, I want to be home with my kids. And he said, sweetheart, you're not listening. There is something you're supposed to do with Dave and Dr. Hill with these oils. And I said, what do you mean, these oils? I've tried all the essential oils out there. There's nothing that meets the quality standards our family needs to use for our health care. And he smiled at me and he said, I know. You're supposed to find them. Stop thinking with your head and start thinking with your heart. And it was in that moment that I knew. It all came together, and I had such a grand vision of going out and finding the world's most pure, most potent essential oils and educating mothers like me how to take charge of their health care. So it was in that moment, before fear took over, that I picked up the phone and I called Dave.
And Emily Wright called me at the time and just said,
what if we could go out and source the most pure essential oils on the planet and bring them to the world in a mainstream fashion? And he got really emotional. And Dave doesn't get emotional.
And actually it was that right then and there. That was the genesis for me. And I just kind of felt strongly like, yeah, we're going to start a company.
So I hung up the phone with Dave, I picked up the phone, and I called Dr. Hill. And as I called him, I still remember he kind of giggled. And I said, Doc, this isn't funny. I'm serious about this. What if we could go out and find these pure oils like we've always wanted to do? And what if we could educate people to really understand the power behind these oils? And he said, no, Emily, I'm not laughing because I think your idea is crazy. I'm laughing because I was just getting ready to call you and ask you the very same question.
It started with an initial little small meeting in an Italian restaurant.
In the far corner, and we met for 5.5 hours until they finally kicked us out of the restaurant because we weren't buying food anymore. And we just started to dream.
We would meet anywhere we could find some space to meet. And it was in some strange places. Of course, the basement of the Normal Library was one.
We got too rambunctious and they finally kicked us out of the library.
Sometimes it was in the basement of our homes.
I remember not telling my kids, you know, that I was unemployed and starting a new thing, but the dad was working on a project in the basement. As I did the business plan, I started to realize that this was going to be big. I just knew that with such a good team and product that had changed our lives, we felt like this was going to be significant.
So as we began in the spring of 2008, that's when we had a massive falling out with the housing market in the United States.
And there was a lot of panic and a lot of fear. We looked at starting this company. The first thing you think is, I got to raise money. I've got to get capital. And we set out to do that initially. And actually ended up, the four of us, back in New York City, visiting with some very high-profile people.
And as we gathered together that next morning at that conference table, and we've got, you know, all of these Manhattan-style managers that are meeting with us, and they quizzed us for hours. Finally, at the end of the day, they looked at us and they said, we believe that your business model is going to work. We believe that you will be successful, and we want to fund your venture.
We'll give you $5 million. And we all, of course, felt extremely elated.
They were willing to fund the company, but of course they were interested in 51% and control.
And I just remember the feeling we had as we walked away from that conference table. And the four of us found ourselves in front of the Statue of Liberty. And I remember looking across the water.
Almost as if on cue, as I recall, we all just grew somewhat silent.
And as we looked out over the water, and I looked at the Statue of Liberty, what rung true to me is, we're doing this to give people freedom. And if we take their money, we can't make people free. And we can't make this dream that we have a reality because they'll never allow us to bring the quality of essential oils that we know we have to have to light. Because they'll be looking for an exit strategy, they'll be looking for a return on their investment, and that can't be part of the equation.
I remember standing right next to Dave Sterling, and Dave looked at me and in kind of a somewhat shocking way, he asked me, how much money do you have, Doc? And I said, I don't know. And he said, how much can you pull together? And I said, I don't know. And he asked each one of us in succession, and before we left the park that afternoon, we had made the decision that we were unable to take any resources from anybody, and instead, we would all leverage everything we have.
We took the equity out of our homes, we cashed out 401ks, we liquidated everything we owned in order for this dream to come to fruition.
And so as I expressed this to my wife, I remember very clearly. She just looked at me and said, well, I trust you. You'll take care of us, and we'll be fine.
And we had family members even come to us to say, you're foolish. Your family is going to be homeless. So we went all in, everything. We didn't hold anything back. We thought it would be for just a couple of months that we went without any income, but it was 13 months. Those final months, I mean, we're eating almonds and yogurt until telling our kids they can't go to dance practice and they can't play sports because we don't have enough money. But having that belief that it was all going to be worth it. And I remember a day that we had $5,000 left in our account. $5,000 because we had just put together this big oil order. And we didn't know how we were going to make payroll. We didn't know how we were going to make commissions. And just to see how doors open every single time, as long as we continued to step forward, the doors open.
People ask me sometimes, you know, how are you guys able to do what you did? And, you know, but everybody rolled their sleeves up and we did every job. We did this job, this job, this job.
I was supposed to go out and find these precious oils. So I started calling people. Every single person would say, of course, our oils are 100% pure. And that's when I realized almost all essential oils that are sold out there are sold through brokers.
These brokers were very smart people, often having very sophisticated labs. And the oils were almost always changed. Most were not pure. Most were synthetically created.
I had probably 100+ different samples that had been sent to my home. And every time we would meet, you know, Dave, Dr. Hill would say, Emily, have you found the oils yet? I'd have to say, not yet. Like, are we going down the right path? Is this really what we're supposed to do? And I remember one beautiful day, I opened up my doorstep and 5 oils showed up all on the same day. It was frankincense, lavender, tea tree, lemon, and peppermint. As I smelled these bottles, I called up Dave and I called up Dr. Hill and I said, I found the oils. They said, don't you dare open them until we're all together. We knew that these oils were absolutely pure, and it gave us just enough confidence, just enough faith to continue stepping forward. I remember that first discussion we had. We talked about the culture of the company. What type of soul do we want doTERRA to have? And we realized that these oils are experiential. And we realized it had to be a person-to-person model. We had to bring people together. We've got to have a culture of giving back. We have to have a culture of caring. Locking arms with the people who are putting the seeds in the ground, who are harvesting these products. It's making sure that their needs are met.
As I look back on it today with doTERRA, it's overwhelming to me to see the impact it is around the world. There was a lot of sacrifice, but again, those are days we look back on, you know, with some pride. Sacrifice is a really important piece in setting the foundation.
Today, we've empowered nearly 8 million families all around the globe. We're now filling 315,000 bottles of oil every single day. And just to think about it on that scale just warms my heart, knowing that every single bottle is changing somebody's life on both sides of the bottle. I think this work has such purpose. It's like, how can we stop?
We have single-handedly changed the acceptance of essential oils in science and in medicine.
We are so committed to this work. We are so humbled to be stewards of what nature has created so perfectly for us. And we're so grateful for all of our amazing employees, for all of our amazing wellness advocates, for all of our amazing customers all around the world.
We haven't changed in our mission. We haven't changed in our purpose. We're still true to those things that very early on were important. If doing the right thing was important then, doing the right thing is important now. If helping and giving service to other people was important then, it's important now. If sourcing oils differently and doing what had not been done before was important then, it's important now. We feel like, as crazy as it sounds, we're still just beginning.
From those humble beginnings to today,
We welcome you to doTERRA's campus here in Pleasant Grove, Utah. I'm Andrew O'Hare, doTERRA's Chief Commercial Officer, and with me today are all 7 of doTERRA's founding executives: Greg Cook, Mark Wolfert, Dave Sterling, Emily Wright, Dr. Hill, Rob Young, and Corey Lindley. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And first, a question for everyone. In 30 seconds or fewer, can you tell us your favorite essential oil and why? Corey, let's get started with you.
Sure, you mean other than On Guard soft gels, right? How do you live without those? I think for me, every morning I love to combine Siberian fir and green mandarin and use them with fractionated coconut oil in a shaving product. Can't convince Emily to do a shaving product, but for me, I do my own blend. And it reminds me of what's going on in Russia, what's going on in Brazil, and everywhere around the world. And it's a great way to start the day.
I'll repeat Corey's favorite. I'm an On Guard fan. I use more On Guard in our home than anything else. Lately, though, I've been using spearmint in my water. I love spearmint too. Nice. But I love all of the oils, of course. So.
It's hard to pick a favorite.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'm a creature of habit because I'm struggling trying to figure out which one is my favorite. So maybe I'll just speak to the cycle that I'm in right now. And one of the oils that I love and I use a great deal of is copaiba. I use that every single day, and I use it in multiples of ways. I'm using it topically, I'm using it internally. And for me, it's made a big difference in my daily routines and how I feel overall.
I can't narrow it down to just one. Can I choose 3?
No.
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 You have to pick a favorite. We've all chosen one. You get one oil.
All right, so yarrow, I love what it's doing for my skin, and I love to use it internally, just kind of bring me back to more of a, I guess, a prime state is what I say with yarrow palm. But I can't live without my rose, especially over the heart. Oil of self-love.
One oil.
But Immortelle too.
Oh, she's still going to do all
Right?
3.
You
All
went with 3 anyway.
It's all the restorative oils, and if you're on a desert island and you can't have anything but Immortelle, you're set.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay, then I don't have to just do one either, right? So I was going to say copaiba and the soft gels every morning, every night for me, but I have to mention my happy oil, though. My happy oil is cheer of late.
Oh, nice.
I just love
Nice.
cheer.
That's a good one.
It is hard to just choose one oil, and at night I diffuse a few different oils, but there is one oil that I could not live without. Every morning after I exercise, and yes, I do work out in the morning. I know you can't tell,
We
but
could
I do.
tell, Mark.
Getting in and out of bed doesn't count, though.
I get in the steamer and I use Breathe.
Yeah.
And for someone, especially in these times, and you're getting older, and they say keeping a healthy respiratory system, and I just love Breathe because it really strengthens my respiratory system, helps clear things out.
I think my favorite product that doTERRA has is the Rose hand lotion. That product alone has funded millions and millions of dollars of charitable efforts and had an impact on the world more than any other Healing Hands project that we do. It's just really my favorite product.
Great. Well, thank you, Greg. One thing that makes doTERRA different from everyone else is how we source our oils. Greg, Juanita from North Carolina has a question, and she asks, can you describe what co-impact sourcing is for those unfamiliar with this term, and why co-impact sourcing is so important to doTERRA?
Thank you, Juanita. Great question. A few years ago, we found ourselves growing much greater than any other company had ever done in the essential oil world. More than half of the countries where doTERRA does business are actually in developing countries, and many of the growers had been taken advantage of. They were living in not the best circumstances, and we recognized that the most important way for us to contribute back to the world was to benefit directly our growers and our producers of essential oils around the world.
Can I just share one more thought?
Absolutely.
As I'm listening to Greg talk about co-impact sourcing and how strategic that was for us as a company, there's another element to that. And I think it's something that drives in each one of us maybe on a more personal level, and that is that when you think about those things coming together, it really is a good demonstration of the culture of doTERRA, who we are at our very core, that it's not just about the end goal in mind, it's the process that we get there and the good that we bring about in the process. And that's what we see everybody doing in doTERRA as a whole. One of the things that's been really important to us in doTERRA, especially as we've expanded the essential oils beyond just this personal use, and everyone knows that we have this big foray into the sciences and all that we're doing that way for research, that demands that we have consistency. And the only way to do that is to fine-tune our processes. And so all of that combined has helped us to do not just what Greg mentioned, but to do it exceptionally well. And the quality that we see, the consistency that we see within that, which purity is a main element and component, really drives us to where we are today.
So I have a question for you, Doc. What percentage of essential oils on the market today, what percentage are actually pure? Do we know that?
I think it's kind of hard to tell, but I could give you my best educated guess. One of the things that we've done consistently in doTERRA, and we're all very familiar with this, we know our competition. We know the marketplace. I think in a large sense, we've redeveloped the marketplace to our standard, and that's why we're able to do what we do. But I don't think it's an exaggeration, in all honesty, to say that nearly all essential oils. Now, exact percentage, what is that, 95, 98%? And I don't know, I'll be really bold, why I think that percentage is so high. And I've said this before, I think we've all said it in one way or another, people don't do what we do.
It's certainly not the least expensive way to do things.
Well, Corey's chuckling. I think he would agree with that statement.
There's a lot cheaper ways to do things than the way doTERRA does them. In terms of our investment in the growers and working with them every step of the way we go through the distillation process, the way that we are primary and right there, the team that we have that flies around the world.
Our quality labs.
Our quality labs, when you add all of that up, no one compares. There's no one, and it's not inexpensive to be able to do it this way. We're committed to it, so we're built around it. We find ways to have efficiencies in other areas, right? So that we can stay focused on bringing these oils, but it's not cheap.
You know, we hear that, you know, obviously we're in the essential oil business, but I hear sometimes that people will say that we're also in the empowerment business.
Absolutely.
Emily, would you like to talk to that thought a little bit?
Yeah, most definitely. We, just to kind of go off of what Dr. Hill and Dave were talking about, we love what we do with co-impact sourcing, but we also love what that means on the other side of the bottle. So as we talk about empowerment, right, as a mother, I love having these tools available to take care of my family the way I see fit, and we want every single person on the planet to have that same empowerment. And I love what that does. I also love our business model. As much as I love the essential oils, I equally love our business model because we're able to give financial empowerment in that regard as well, and really have people find a voice and realize that they have something so profound to offer the world. And I love the empowerment that we get on the co-impact sourcing side of things, the healing hand side of things. We could go on forever, and really the way that we are empowering on both sides of the bottle.
I know we also provide opportunities to go to the areas in which we source the co-impact trips, whether it be Kenya, Guatemala, I'm going to miss a few, Bulgaria, Nepal, it goes on and on. I had the privilege to go to one, and it really created that connection and love, not only for doTERRA and the good that we're doing, but also for the product. And Rob, I know that you have traveled extensively on many of these such trips, and we had a question from Gretchen Ulanowski, who asks, what has been your favorite doTERRA sourcing trip, and why sourcing in general?
That's as hard as asking me which oil I like the best, but all those trips have been special trips for us. And you say, what maybe our question is, what has been most memorable for me at my age? That's the one that's been most recent. But I think we've been in maybe Guatemala the longest when it comes to kind of these co-impact sourcing trips. But that's amazing because we've been there long enough now that, like, the first time we went there, the little kids in the little village, remember, now when we go back, we see them grown.
Right.
And we recognize them, and they recognize us.
You've
and
kept expanding the facility there as well, right?
Anyway, it's very gratifying to see these young children grow up and how they're being changed and how they're continuing to become empowered with what we're doing there.
It always just amazes me how doTERRA is in the right place at the right time. The very first trip that anyone from doTERRA made to Nepal, and we were there right after the earthquake. And I know what we're doing right now in Somalia is completely off the hook in terms of
a project, a story worthy of a documentary.
Absolutely.
Frankly. And that'll be forthcoming. But you bring back memories. I remember being in Nepal the first time with Emily, and shortly after that earthquake, and I remember the first time in Haiti, similar after that, shortly after their devastating earthquake, the first time that we were there. And again, you just watch the people, and they're a little in shock still. And you know, it's amazing and so gratifying that doTERRA has this opportunity to come in at a grassroots level and try to make a difference and try to relieve some of this suffering and provide some means, economic means.
And Dave, I remember you saying last year that we don't just buy farms, we build farmers. And Corey, I know you're over our global operation, and we actually had a question from Kimberly Van Sessen from Westville, Indiana, who asks, how do we choose the oils that we source?
Well, Kimberly, that's a great question. It's a collaborative process. It's not just the operations team, but it's a collaborative process between Dr. Hill's science team, Emily, and marketing team, Dave, and his experience, and everyone, the whole team comes together. We have a multitude of oil possibilities, but from a sourcing side, I will just say that we only will source oils where we can know that they're sustainable and that we're helping people, and that we can supply them in a way that is ethical.
Well, I like to call it the doTERRA difference. And I feel part of that difference is the impact that we're making on the ground. Mark, could you talk to a little bit to the human impact that you're seeing and how that kind of impacts your life?
Well, you know, when we started this, and we, as Greg says, we didn't have very much at the beginning, but it was always our goal, our dream that someday we could make an impact, not only in the United States where we started, but all around the world. And as, again, we started to source, it gave us a profoundly unique perspective on what we have and perhaps the responsibility, the opportunity for sure, that we have to share a little bit with others and help them enjoy some of the things that we take for granted.
Yeah, well, thank you. We did have lots of questions on the future of doTERRA, our vision for doTERRA looking out. We had a question from Heather Rodriguez from Sparks, Nevada, who asks, where do you see doTERRA in 10 years? And what are you most excited about for the future of the company? Maybe we'll start with Greg and move around.
So for the next 10 years, as more and more people continue to look for natural solutions at prices that they can afford, from a source that they trust, that relevancy of doTERRA, given our current environment and the sort of changing world that is going to be with us for the foreseeable future, makes doTERRA perfectly positioned. And I have never been more optimistic or more excited about our future than I am now.
Well, I'm going to try to answer that question by going back to the past a little bit, Andrew. And in fact, I'm going to set Dave up here a little bit. So Dave, I don't know if you remember this conversation, but I do, and it had a huge impact on me. You said something like, first of all, Mark, I see us eventually being a multi-billion-dollar company. And I thought, okay, what have I got myself into here? Who is this guy? Because at the time, I think we were doing $150,000, maybe $200,000 a month in volume. And then you said, and I see us marketing our products in countries all over the world. And you talked about the expansive product line, that essential oils could be the foundation for everything that we do. And again, a very narrow-minded, ignorant attorney at that point. I was thinking, well, essential oils, that's kind of it. We've got 40 oils, that's good, right? You talked about having millions of wellness, we called them IPCs at the time, remember, independent product consultants. Talked about having millions of wellness advocates around the world, and I think we just had a handful, couple thousand. So, I don't think I'm as amazed today to see that as I was trying to fathom that at the time, but I'm interested, Dave. I'm gonna turn this over to you. So that's what you saw in that first 10 years or so. What do you think in the next 10 years we're gonna see?
Well, first of all, I hate to say I don't remember the conversation.
You're gonna say I told you so?
But, no, I don't even remember the conversation. But you know, for me, first of all, it's all about foundations. And doTERRA started out the right way. You know, looking towards the future, all of that we've been talking about here today, this foundation of sacrifice, this foundation of purity, this foundation that went from there to this incredible social responsibility with our co-impact sourcing and so forth. All of these pieces that have come over time have set us up for the future, and I think the future looks pretty bright for doTERRA.
So I think about where the world is today. I don't think there's been a time that people have felt so alone and so isolated. And these are scary, uncertain, unprecedented times that we're living through right now. It's not by accident that we named this event the Global Connection. And when I look at these essential oils, they are so powerful in really uniting us and connecting us as human beings. When I look at what does the future hold in the next 10 years, I see doTERRA as a vehicle that will really connect humanity and really bring us together for a very common cause, for a very specific purpose. Many people will say to me, well, doTERRA has arrived. You know, you're already such a large company, I don't even matter. And I want every single person to know that they absolutely matter. And the connection that they make with another human being may change their life forever. That they may be the exact person with the exact message that they need that will give them hope. You know, there's a proverb that says, if you have health, you have hope. And if you have hope, you have everything. And we're dealers of hope.
Something that's always playing in my mind is that, yeah, we are living in some unprecedented times. But I'd like to put a little bit different connotation on that. Unprecedented in the sense that we now know more than what we've ever known before. But I also am really enthused for the future because although we've been involved in science and things for a long period of time, we're about discovery in doTERRA. Mm-hmm. And we're making new discovery all the time. We've done a number of things, some of which you'll have heard about or will hear about as we go through this event and certainly other events in the future. But we're making discovery, and it's impactful in how we accomplish and do what we do best at doTERRA. I feel like in these times that we're in, there is an undue amount of criticism that falls not just upon us, but maybe upon doTERRA as a whole, and maybe even on the essential oil industry. Know that we're separating ourselves from that. We always have been, and we're going to continue to do those things. And so I'm really very optimistic about the future, but I'm excited about these discoveries and how they'll impact us more substantially than what they have in the past.
My thoughts are a little bit along the lines of what Emily said. You know, when we started this company, remember, we started this company during a economic recession, right? And doTERRA was the tool for many people when it came to some of the challenges that they were facing during that economic recession. But I kind of feel we're kind of suffering from a little bit of a kindness or a humanity recession right now. And I think people are needing kind of that human connection and that human touch again. And I think, while doTERRA is not the only way we'll connect with each other, I think we are uniquely positioned to be the answer for many people to find that kindness and that connection again with people. Essential oils are wonderful, right? You open a wild orange essential oil and let someone smell it, and if they don't respond to that, they've got other issues. But it's just, they have been a vehicle and will continue to be a vehicle to help people connect with each other and show kindness and service to other human beings. I think we need more of that in the world today. So,
I'm a data-driven guy, and as I look at doTERRA, it's a given that we're going to be 2, 3, 4 times larger than we are today. All the metrics in terms of, enrollments and retention and everything that we have going on indicate that we're going to be much, much larger as a company. But, so that's the future, we'll be bigger. But what I'm most excited about relative to doTERRA is the last 12 years have been spent building a foundation that is ready to absorb whatever the world's going to throw at us. We've been able to adapt to things because we're primary on source in Haiti or in Nepal. When a natural disaster happens, we can bring relief in hours and days. In Guatemala, I remember when there was a volcano eruption, we had responses immediately, right? And not only are we going to be much bigger, we're going to be solid, and we're going to make a difference every step of the way. It excites me to think about in 10 years from now being out with growers in other parts of the world and not only impacting 500,000 or 1 million lives or 1.5 million lives, but impacting 10 million lives and 15 million lives. And really having doTERRA make a huge difference in the world. We've made a difference in parts of the world today, and we're proud of that, and we're excited about that. But to be a player on the world stage over the next 5 or 10 years is what I believe the future holds for doTERRA.
It really is amazing to see the impact that doTERRA's had these past 12 years, and yet somehow it feels as though we're just getting started. Let's continue the conversation about our pursuit of purity, and we hope from wherever you're joining us from around the world that you can feel a little more connected to us and, of course, the broader doTERRA community. And thank you so much to all of our founding executives.